They were the legends of the silver screen, the ones who shaped Hollywood's golden era. The lethally charming Clark Gable, the razor-edged Bette Davis, the defiant Marlon Brando, and the untouchable John Wayne. Millions adored their allure, their charisma, and their flawless smiles on bright black and white sets. But only one man sat across the desk and knew the bare truth: Johnny Carson. For 3 decades as king of late night, Carson had to summon pure professionalism to hide a grim reality. The glamour reeked. This is his dark diary of stale booze, clinging smoke, caked-on makeup, and 9 legends who made him hold his breath. Chapter 1. Marlon Brando, the antisocial, anti-soap obsession. Johnny Carson had handled every scent known to television, but nothing quite prepared him for Marlon. Brando, rebellious to his core, refused to follow social norms, and that included bathing. He made only a handful of Tonight Show appearances, seeing talk shows as artificial arenas. But each time he arrived, he carried the unmistakable scent of deliberate neglect. This wasn't the sharp sting of alcohol or tobacco. This was something primal. Brando smelled like a man who just walked out of the woods. Musty sweat soaked into old t-shirts, faint hints of dog hair, leftover food, and unwashed leather. He wore his scent like philosophy, believing soap erased one's essence. When he got animated, leaning in to tell a story or fall into character, Carson caught gusts of garlic breath so thick they could be chewed. Brando reportedly ate onions and raw cloves before interviews just to rattle people. Sitting across from him, Carson had to call on every bit of his professional armor, nodding, smiling, and pretending to listen, while his stomach rolled. The man who changed cinema with his honesty brought a kind of rawness that bypassed words. He was magnetic, untamed, and legendary. But for Carson, Brando wasn't just a genius. He was a walking challenge to human endurance, proof that even charisma can come with a bad smell. Chapter 2. Judy Garland, the odor of a devastated body. Among all the guests who made Johnny Carson hold his breath, Judy Garland was the one name he mentioned with quiet sorrow. She didn't reek from carelessness or ego. Her scent came from pain. We mean years of addiction, illness, and collapse. Judy wasn't like the others. She was Dorothy, the golden voice, the icon of old Hollywood. But by the late 60s, when she appeared on The Tonight Show, she was no longer that shining star. She was broken, and her scent told the whole story. First came the overpowering mint. Gum, mints, and mouthwash, piled on to bury what couldn't be buried. The sharp bite of booze and downers leaking from her pores. She smelled like sweetness over rot. Then came the fabric, clothes that hadn't seen fresh air in days. Her life had become unstable, filled with hotel rooms, constant travel, and no time for what we call basics. Her outfits carried the mildew of closed bags, sweat, and anxiety. And under it all, the final scent: sickness. Johnny recognized it before anyone else. Her body was failing, and her breath carried the faint, sour trace of decay. During a 1968 interview, she leaned close to Carson, touching his arm as she shared personal memories. The smell wasn't repulsive. It was deeply sad. When she spoke of Over the Rainbow, her voice still soared, but her breath whispered of alcohol and grief. Carson held it together. But off camera, he needed cold water and silence. She died not long after. Her scent never left his memory. But anyway, she was a legend. Chapter 3. Shelley Winters, the odor of hustle and chaos. Well, Shelley was chaos in a fur coat. Her smell wasn't tragic. It was just constant, lived-in disorder. She didn't stink from neglect. She just never slowed down. Shelley was loud, clever, and unpredictable. She had 2 Oscars and a personality that filled the whole stage. But when she landed in that guest chair, Johnny always braced for it. The scent hit before she even spoke. Shelley didn't come straight from hair and makeup. She came from life. She ate in the dressing room. She snuck in the car, and it showed. Her clothes often carried the leftovers like mustard, spilled coffee, cold butter, and old sandwich grease. She wore velvet, fur, silk, but never freshly cleaned. The heat of the studio turned the mix into something sour, thick, and greasy. Her costly perfume couldn't fight it. Her makeup added to it. The smell was like an abandoned lunchbox with hairspray. She didn't sit still either. She waved her arms, shifted, laughed, and leaned. And each time, the scent changed angles. One night, she dropped half a sandwich into Carson's ashtray mid-story. He stayed cool, wiped it with a tissue, and never broke character. The audience laughed. They thought it was a bit. It wasn't. It was Carson holding it together. Shelley wasn't mean. She wasn't unkind. She was just messy, distracted, and full of fire. But for King, every visit came with a smell, a wild, noisy scent of motion and mayhem he could never quite dodge. Chapter 4. Bette Davis, the Queen and the Breath of London Fog. If Shelley brought chaos, Bette brought discipline. She was sharp, brilliant, unapologetically herself. A fixture on The Tonight Show throughout the 70s and 80s, she mesmerized audiences with biting wit and old-school poise. But Carson knew something the cameras didn't. As close as she came to legendary, Davis also carried a private storm of sense that made every interview a test of endurance. Cigarettes weren't a habit for Davis. They were a part of her being. Smoke was embedded in her clothes, her hair, even her breath. Carson often described it, privately, as sitting next to a smoldering ashtray dressed in diamonds. The base layer was that cold, bitter staleness of extinguished cigarettes, made worse by thick foundation melting under studio lights. That makeup, heavy with vintage perfume and talc, created a waxy chemical fog. And to mask it all, Davis wore overpowering perfume, a cloying sweetness that tried to hide decay but only complicated the bouquet. When she laughed or leaned in, the cloud surrounded Carson like smog. Still, he never flinched. Smiling, nodding, handkerchief discreetly dabbed with cologne just beneath his nose, Carson kept his cool. Davis never noticed. She'd lived in that haze too long to smell it anymore. But every time she left, the guest chair had to be aired out with fans, and Carson, always a gentleman, finally exhaled. Chapter 5. John Wayne, Tobacco, Illness, and the Smell of Sacrifice. This name on Johnny Carson's list wasn't about neglect. It was about the damage endured. John Wayne, also called the Duke, was an American icon. Carson respected him deeply and considered him a friend. But even reverence couldn't erase the smell Wayne carried. Decades of relentless smoking defined it. Wayne consumed 5 or 6 packs of harsh, roll-your-own cigarettes every day for years. The result was overwhelming. His clothes, hat, and leather jacket, everything he owned, were saturated. The smoke didn't drift. It dominated the room. Wherever Wayne went, the air thickened. In his final appearances, the smell changed. Cancer had entered the mix. The tobacco was still there, but now blended with medication and the faint, sickly odor of a body under siege. When Wayne sat down heavily, a wave of smoke rolled outward. Carson didn't recoil. He felt sorrow. Wayne's voice had weakened, reduced to a raspy whisper. Each time he leaned forward to speak louder, his breath hit Carson, dense, acrid, and almost flammable. Yet Carson never joked, never shifted away. He guided the conversation gently, letting Wayne relive westerns and old Hollywood stories. After one final appearance, Wayne's chair was soaked in smoke. The crew couldn't clean it immediately. Well, that's because Carson didn't ask them to. He sat there afterward, breathing it in like a quiet tribute. Wayne died not long after. To Carson, his scent wasn't failure. It was the smell of a legend burning himself out. Chapter 6. Orson Welles, the genius with the odor of ruin. If Johnny Carson ever carried a truly dark secret to his grave, it wasn't about love or money. It sat right on the set of The Tonight Show. That desk, revered by millions, wasn't always a throne. Some nights, it was a frontline trench. For 3 decades, Carson sat there, composed and smiling, while enduring olfactory warfare from legends he was paid to flatter. And no one waged a more brutal assault than Orson Welles. By the 1970s, Welles was no longer the youthful marvel of Citizen Kane. He'd become a massive, lumbering figure, draped in an enormous, dusty black suit like a traveling tent. The crowd saw greatness. Carson, 3 feet away, smelled collapse. Welles carried a dense, layered stench. Stale Havana cigar smoke clung to his suit like mold, but beneath it was something worse: brandy, seeping out through his pores. Under the searing studio lights, Welles essentially steamed. The mix of sweat, booze, and old fabric created a thick, choking haze. Things got worse when Welles leaned in, his face glistening with sweat, breath laced with smoke and brandy, to perform close-up magic tricks. Carson, blinking and smiling for the cameras, was actually holding his breath in shallow mouthfuls, eyes watering. After each visit, the velvet guest chair reeked for days, sometimes needing industrial treatment or replacement. Welles never knew. Carson never told. But that chair remembered. Chapter 7. Truman Capote, the aroma of decline and a dark secret. Of all the guests who made Johnny Carson uneasy, Truman Capote stirred the deepest pity. Capote didn't smell of rebellion or laziness. He smelled of collapse. Once the brilliant mind behind Breakfast at Tiffany's and In Cold Blood, Capote became a regular on The Tonight Show, treating it like a second home. Carson watched him unravel in real time. With every appearance, Capote's body betrayed him further. His scent was layered and deeply unsettling. First came chemicals: alcohol, medication, sour sweat. His body was bloated, overworked, saturated with substances struggling to exit through his skin. It smelled like overload. Then there were the clothes. Once immaculate, now dark, damp, and neglected. They carried the odor of hotel rooms, spilled drinks, and long nights that ended badly. Stains on cuffs and collars told their own quiet story. Worst of all was the smell of illness. In his final years, Capote occasionally lost control of basic bodily functions. Carson never spoke of it publicly, but sitting close, it was impossible to ignore. The smell wasn't shocking. It was heartbreaking. When Capote leaned in to whisper gossip, Carson endured the heavy breath of decay. The audience saw empathy in Carson's eyes. That was real. But they didn't know he was also breathing in the slow death of a friend. Carson never rushed him, never embarrassed him. When Capote died in 1984, Carson remembered not just the genius, but the scent of a mind consumed by its own destruction. Chapter 8. Richard Burton, the mobile whiskey distillery. After enduring so many bad smells, Johnny thought nothing could surprise his nose again. Then came Richard Burton. Burton didn't just drink. He lived on alcohol. We mean completely, from head to toe. His scent wasn't an accident, it was embedded in him. He wasn't a guest who reeked from the night before. He walked in like a breathing whiskey vat. Richard Burton, stage legend, screen giant, lover of Elizabeth Taylor, was brilliant, intense, magnetic. But for Carson, the moment he sat down, the real performance began. Burton's breath hit like a furnace, rich with whiskey, breaking through every inch of skin. It was said that for men who drank as long as Burton had, even their sweat gave off the scent. The moment he leaned in to tell a joke or quote Shakespeare, a cloud of alcohol punched through the air like a bar door slamming open. Layered beneath that was the stale tang of wet cigarettes, like damp ash left in a half-empty beer glass. He wore strong cologne, probably pretty expensive, but it only collided with the rest, never masked it. During interviews, Carson had to tilt slightly back, pretending to turn toward Ed McMahon, just to breathe again. Burton never noticed. He was too busy laughing, ranting, dazzling the room. Carson kept nodding, smiling, and trying not to breathe too deeply. When Burton passed in 1984, Carson mourned the artist. But privately, he never forgot the smell, the scent of wasted brilliance soaked in liquor and drifting into his face. Chapter 9. Walter Matthau, the breath of racetracks and onion sandwiches. Among all the guests who challenged Johnny Carson's endurance, there was one he genuinely loved, Walter Matthau. Walter wasn't tragic or disturbing. He was simply messy, proudly, hopelessly messy. His scent never horrified Carson. It amused and exhausted him at the same time, because Carson knew there was no fixing a man like Matthau. He was a comic genius, immortalized as Oscar Madison in The Odd Couple. The cruel joke was that Matthau, in real life, made Oscar Madison look tidy. His laziness was legendary, and his obsession with gambling, especially horse racing, defined the smell he carried onto the Tonight Show set. Matthau often arrived straight from the track. His sweat held the heat of asphalt, the dust of parking lots, and the faint metallic odor of old paper money handled too many times. It smelled like stress and anticipation baked into skin. Then came the onion sandwiches. Walter ate whatever was fast and cheap, usually something overloaded with raw onions and grease. When he laughed, and he laughed constantly, a wave of rotten, fermented onion breath surged across the desk. Carson had to pause his breathing, smiling through it. Matthau's hair was always slick with oil, his clothes worn too long without washing. Like Shelley Winters, he treated hygiene as optional. Carson joked about his rumpled look, teasing him on air. But beneath the humor, Carson constantly leaned back, shifting for air. Walter wasn't careless. He was committed to disorder. And for Carson, Matthau became the smell of accepted sloppiness, friendship, and onions that never quite faded. Well, that's it for today. So, what do you think about these legends? Let us know in the comments. And if you've enjoyed watching this video, be sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe for amazing stories. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you very soon.